Thing that people keep on their fridge universally is a to-do list to remind us that occasionally we actually do get to feel triumphant on the journey and we've accomplished what we set out to do. So now to be triumphant on our journey, I think what has to happen, and this is what I'm going to talk about today, is that we have to make a shift. So before I go into that, I want to say that Ernest Holmes, the founder of our church, said, "I want to be a man who is for something and against nothing." And so today I want us to think about what are we for. It's real easy to find something to be against. That takes no talent, no particular intelligence, no ability. It's easy to be against something. But every day to get up and say, this is what I'm for. Me, as a spiritual being on the face of the earth, this is what I'm for. No, I don't know what the answer is for you, but what comes to me today is that, well, today I'm for love. I'm for people all being different than each other and all getting along. I'm for everybody having all their needs met. I'm for, and my list goes on and on and on, as opposed to all the things that I could be against. Part of this is what you're for is an expanding, attracting energy, and what you're against is a diminishing energy. And so I think that we want to be putting out into the universe a message of here's what I'm for. Here's what I'm willing to bring in. Here's what I'm trying to attract into my life, rather than these are all the things and all the people that I'm against. You know? Because when you do that, and you usually do that with a lot of feeling, don't you? Then the universe says, wow, he's got so much feeling around this. He must really want this. Let's bring him more to be against. He's so focused on what he's against, he clearly wants more of it. And you'll notice the universe is abundant. It will bring you lots and lots more. Now, in the New Testament, one of the most interesting characters to me is Saul, who is a persecutor of the newly emerging Christian teaching. Now, remember, the Christian teaching at this time was quite small. The home churches that Paul will eventually write letters to and visit or send his assistants to, these small home churches are like 30 people at the most. These are tiny little groups. I know when I was a kid and I would hear somebody read, you know, Paul's letter to the whatchamacallums, I would imagine these huge, massive communities of thousands of people. They were these little home churches. They were underground. They were hiding. They were trying not to draw too much attention to themselves. So Paul is so interesting because he used to be Saul. Now, Saul was a Roman citizen. He came from a privileged family. And it was a big deal that he was a Roman citizen because this plays very much into his ability to spread this newly emerging Christian teaching. Because he had freedom to roam about and couldn't be arrested because he had this clout of being a Roman citizen. So what happens is, while he's out one day persecuting away, Saul is hit by this blinding flash of light. In the East, we would say it's enlightenment. In Western traditions, we call it illumination. The point was, the light went on in Saul, and something changed. He was different. He became different. He made a shift. So he went from being the persecutor of Christians to being their biggest supporter and encourager and spreader of the teaching. So as I look at that, I think, okay, Saul was against, but Paul was for. And what he was for was much more powerful than what he was against. This is why I think it's important for us to make a shift and be aware of what we're here for in life, on earth right now. Now, we teach in our Science of Mind teaching that who you are is a spiritual being. You are a spirit that happens to be in a physical body or have a physical body right now. I said that incorrectly. Your spirit is not in your physical body because spirit that you are is so much bigger than your physical body. Your spirit, which is part of God, which is infinite, cannot be contained in a physical body. And yet, here on earth, it's really appropriate for spirit to have a physical body. We don't do really well when spirit doesn't have a body here. We have lots of TV programs about this now. They're called ghost shows, right? They freaks people out when spirit's not in a body. And so it seems that it's appropriate here on earth that spirit has a vessel to learn all the things we came here to learn. And like I said, and what if this is not just school? What if this is really recess? that our spirit is here to learn to enjoy and love and play and expand. That's what I'm interested in. I'm tired of all the lessons. Lessons feel so heavy, don't they? Gosh. Now, what I also believe is true is that every soul signed up for a different curriculum, so we don't know what another soul's journey is about. Often we don't even understand what our own journey is about in any given moment, right? But what's important to remember is that because we are spirit, because we are connected to God, to the infinite power and presence that created the universe, that who we are is so much more than we have thought, especially when we're in deep mushrooms. You know what I mean? When we have something going on, when we're having some financial trouble, or we're having a physical challenge, or there's drama in a relationship, or we're miserable at work, the thing to remember is that who I am is a spiritual being. See, I want us to have identification with the Spirit of God that we are, because God has individualized itself as each and every one of us, rather than, oh, poor me, I'm only human. I hate it when people say that, well, you're only human. I feel like that's such a diminishment of the Spirit of God that we are. Because we are not only human. In fact, that part of us that's human is the smallest part of us. Remember, you are this big, infinite, godly spirit that came here to be and do and express and love and on and on and on. So it's important to know that who you really are is spirit, because this is what allows us to get out of the deep mushrooms. By identifying with the more rather than by identifying with that small, finite humanness. There will be always things that sort of pull us back toward our human experience. On Earth, there are going to be challenges. I don't think that's negative. I think that that's just Earth. But the important thing to remember is that because I am a spiritual being, I am always more. Who I really am is more than the circumstances I'm going through. So because I'm spirit, who I am is more than this physical episode I'm experiencing right now. I'm not going to say you're not experiencing that. On the earth plane, what we experience seems very, very real to us. But if we just take a step back and say, but I am more than this. I am more than a physical person experiencing a challenge now. I am spirit. I am part of God. I am infinite in nature. And I have within me everything I need to get through whatever it is, whether it's the challenging boss or the difficult partner or whatever it is. I think that Saul probably felt pretty confident in what he knew before his illumination. Like all of us, we go along living our life until something shakes us up or wakes us up or the light goes off and we see differently. And what I think would be valuable for us to see differently right now is that we are not these limited little specks of dust, these poor little, oh, you're only human. Who we are is that we are emanations of God. It says in the Science of Mind textbook that God created us, God evolved us as spontaneous beings, right? So if we didn't have free will, if we didn't have choice, it's like we would be like puppets, right? And so what's the fun in that? I suppose it could be good if you're the puppet master, but that's not. But to just be a puppet in the box is not very fun, right? So Science of Mind teaches us, though, but that's not it. That we were evolved. We came forth from God, and each of us has free will and we have choice. So what that means is that we can take as long as we want to wake up. We can take as long as we want to have healing. Or we can set about and work on it right now, knowing that all of the power in the universe, all of the presence, all of the love is available to us, because although we teach God is everywhere, God is also inside of us, and this is the presence of God that we're going to get to know. So how are we going to make this shift? Well, of course, you already know what I'm going to say. The shift is going to come about because we dedicate ourselves to something greater than what we experience out here. And how we do that is that we set about in a spiritual practice. So if you're not doing this, these are the things you might try on a regular basis. It's to meditate, to pray, to study, to find a way to be of service in the world, to tithe, and on and on and on, to work with a practitioner, to write in your journal. There are all kinds of things that we do as students of Science of Mind that assist us in defining, in creating a new experience rather than just saying, oh, this has happened to me. I guess this is just the way it's going to be. That kind of thinking is like standing in the middle of a field with a bucket and hoping that a cow will somehow back up to your bucket and milk itself. Possible, but highly unlikely. Just really, really unlikely that that's going to happen. I mean, can you say, moo, moo, moo. It's not going to happen. It's A woman was saying to me recently, she was saying that, everything in her life seemed unsatisfactory, and she did not understand why God has chosen this for her. She was miserable in her work. She was not making enough money. She was just barely covering her bills. No relationship to speak of. Health challenges. Just everything. It seemed like everything. I just don't understand why God was doing this to me. And I understand that she could ask that question. But to respond from what I believe is the science of mind teaching, God didn't do that to her. Okay? We don't have a punishing God. God has no need or interest in visiting horrible little experiences or evil experiences or limiting experiences on anybody. God doesn't do that. God doesn't do those things. God is being God all the time. So, well, why do we have these experiences? Well, because we have free will and because we have choice. And I have to add to this also, consciously, we're not always aware of what our soul came here to learn. And admittedly, some of us at different times in our life, our soul has clearly come in to work out some very, very difficult things. So clearly nobody chooses. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, oh, today let me think the thoughts of illness. That'll be great. Let me see what I get with that. Let me think thoughts of poverty. People don't do that. Right? So part of it must be that everybody's soul comes in with certain things that we are here to experience. Now, I got to tell you right off the bat, it is not my job to judge what you're here to experience. It's the nacho principle. It's not your business what somebody else's soul is here to do. Right? We can barely keep our mind focused on what our soul is here to accomplish, let alone minding other people's business. I was talking with a woman the other day, and I said, well, it just came out. I'm sorry. I apologize. It just came out. I said, well, do you really think that that's your business? And she looked at me and said, what? Like that was the craziest thing in the world. Like clearly it was her business. And by the way, it was none of her business. But anyway, and I said, you have a lot of energy and a lot of attention, a lot of focus into what these other people are doing or not doing, and you're very worked up about that. Perhaps none of it is your business, and your job is to just love them and pray for them and trust that the God that made them will get them through whatever it is they need to learn out of this experience, and their life will go on. I was met with an extraordinary frown and silence, which led me to believe that she did not like what I had to say, which led me to believe also that I was right on track. Because I just think that most things that we put our nose into are not our business. Other people are just living their life, aren't they? And they're not saying, please weigh in on everything I do. Really, I want you to have the freedom to give me your opinion on how to do everything in my life better. Could you do that for me, please? I would so appreciate that. That's not what they're doing. That we all have a spiritual journey. No two souls' journeys look alike. And we're all doing the best we can with it. And see, I think that's important to remember. People are doing the best they can where they are with what they've got right now. I think that everybody wants to feel love, and everybody wants to give love. And I know as soon as I say that, you're thinking, I know people who don't want to give love. I know people who don't want to feel love. And it's like, but if what I say is so, of course I think it is, then even people behaving badly are trying to express love in the only way they know how. See? That they're doing it in a way that they maybe don't feel safer, or they don't know another way. They don't know a better way. But basically, so I play this game that everybody I meet is trying to say I love you, and I have to find it. I have to find it in what they're saying or doing. So sure, in the course of a long day, it looks like I meet a lot of people, especially driving, who are not saying, I love you. They're saying other things. Yes, they are. But see, I want to be for something and against nothing. And what I want to be for is I want to be for happiness, and I want to be for love, and I want to be for everybody having their needs met, and I want to be for a peaceful world. Because, you know, think about this. Here we are, we're like a battery, right? Our being is like a battery. And we're either going to put the energy into something that detracts from life, that diminishes us, that makes us smaller, that keeps us stuck, or we're going to put that energy into things that expand us, that open our heart, that make us more, that allow us to include and make the path wider for us, and we get to decide. And you don't even have to decide now, you know, but we get to decide. You can wait as long as you want. How many times have I said, oh, I'm not ready to deal with this now. I'm not ready to deal with this now. And you know what? It keeps coming around. Isn't that amazing how it's like the universe keeps perfect track of things? You know, the universe has an amazing accounting system, you know, because it's always trying to keep things in balance. Okay, it'll come around again, and it comes around again. But what I notice is when I defer, when I say, oh, I just can't deal with this now, I can't deal with it now, I have so much on my plate, now is not the time, God. When it comes around later, and it will come around, it brings friends. Yeah. So it doesn't come like at a more convenient time, it'll come at another intense time, and it will have grown. It will have grown because in that growing, it's like, oh, okay, now it's really got my attention. You know, I didn't want to deal with it before. When it first came around, I probably should have done that. I'm going to deal with it now. See, I think the human tendency is that we want to ascribe the power to everything outside of us. You know? But in the Old Testament, it says that God gave Adam and Eve dominion over all that was in the garden. That meant they were in charge, you know? They were the top dogs. You know that saying, if you're not the lead dog, the view's always the same? Yeah. But Adam and Eve were the lead dogs, so the view was good. The view was good. Now, I think people often get, you know, I'm going to tell you, I think Eve gets a bum rap here. I really do. Because if Eve... And let's be clear, I don't really think there was an Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve exist within us. They are the male and female polarities within us. But in the story, Eve eats the apple, right? Which probably wasn't even an apple. It was probably a pomegranate, right? So Eve eats the apple, and what happens from that, though, is that sets humanity on a course of its own spiritual evolution. Up until that point, they were just, everything was hunky-dory in the garden. You know, they were fine. You know, Adam, peel me another pomegranate, you know, or whatever. You know, I mean, life was good in the garden, but there was no growth, there was no evolution. It was just kind of status quo. So by Eve making that choice, what it did was that was the impetus for humanity to start its own spiritual evolution, for humanity to start making its own choices to grow and be more. So if it weren't for Eve, we'd all be, you know, sitting around the pomegranate tree saying, like, when's the party going to start? I think it's very important for us as students of science of mind to know that who we are is always more than the conditions that we face. Like I said, there are always going to be conditions on Earth. You know, we're always going to be facing things. You know? But we are not those conditions. Those conditions do not have to define us. That who we are is we are spiritual beings. We are emanations of the Most High God. Like it says in the Bible, know ye not that ye are the sons and daughters of the Most High. So what that means to me is that all of those qualities, all of those attributes that exist in the mind of God exist in us. And so the shift that I think we're after is one, to know what we are for as opposed to just being against something. Okay? What am I for? What am I for today? The other piece is like Paul, you know, that when we open ourselves to be able to receive more, to see more, to love more, that in fact actually changes everything. Let's pray. So we turn our attention inward now, recognizing that right here, the fullness, the allness of God's Spirit is. God that's like the Force in Star Wars. God that's like all-powerful. God that's infinite, way bigger than human. God that's Spirit. And that God is within each and every one of us. It surrounds us. It fills us. It's the most true, most real thing about us. And so in this awareness of our connection with God, I also know that we're all connected on the unseen side of life. And so with hearts and minds wide open, I know for each and every one of us perfect healing today, whether it's body, mind, or spirit. I claim that with God all things are possible, and I absolutely believe this. For it is written in the Scriptures that He healed them all. And I know that that healing is physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And we say yes to all of it. That the incarnation of God that we each embody uniquely is greater than any discord. And so I claim that there is rising above, that there is raising up, that there is healing for each and every one of us. And we say yes to it with a grateful heart. We include in our prayer today our family members and friends and loved ones. We know that right where they are, God is in its fullness. And all of those situations in the world around us that pull at our attention, we say God is right there at the center, as perfect outcome, as peace, as all needs met, as healing and reconciliation. God is right there. And so we bless our church and we bless all churches, synagogues and temples and mosques and ashrams, all paths to God. And I know that we are blessed by being together today, that there is a conscious upliftment. And so just like Saul became Paul, I know that there is a greater yet to be for each and every one of us, and we say yes to it. So with a full heart, I say, thank you, God. I release this word, and so it is. Together we all say, amen.